Drip, drip, drip. The rain fell outside his window. Gregor Samsa shifted beneath his warm covers, a groan escaping his lips. He felt strange, different. He tried to stretch, but something felt wrong. His limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. He forced open his eyes. Blurry shapes swam before him. He blinked, trying to clear his vision. Panic surged through him as he saw his segmented legs. Far too many twitching before his eyes. The world spun. This couldn't be real. It was a nightmare. It had to be. Gregor tried to speak, to cry out, but all that emerged was a dry, clicking sound. His voice was gone. He was trapped in a body he didn't recognize, a grotesque parody of his former self. Fear, cold and clammy, gripped him. He was utterly and terrifyingly alone. He tried to rise, to stand as he always had, but his new body betrayed him. He toppled onto his back, the hard shell of his back cracking against the floor. His room, once familiar and comforting, now loomed large and menacing. The simple act of movement had become an insurmountable challenge. With great effort, he managed to right himself, his multiple legs scrambling for purchase. He yearned to call out to his family, to his sister Greta, but the only sound he could produce was a pathetic hissing from deep within his throat. His thoughts raced, a chaotic jumble of fear and confusion. 6 o'clock. He would be late for work. The thought, absurd in his current state, sent a jolt of panic through him. He was the sole provider for his family. Responsibility weighed heavily upon him, even as his new form made it impossible to fulfill. Every movement was a monumental effort, a testament to his horrifying transformation. The world, once so familiar, now appeared alien and distorted through his multifaceted eyes. He longed for the comfort of his bed, for the oblivion of sleep. But his body, this new monstrous form, refused to cooperate. The simple act of turning around became a laborious ordeal. Furniture, once mundane and easily navigated, was now an obstacle course. He stumbled and lurched, his movements clumsy and uncoordinated. His once strong arms, now thin and spindly, thrashed uselessly in the air. He heard a knock at the door. His mother's voice, filled with concern, sliced through the fog of his confusion. He tried to answer, to reassure her that he was all right. But the only sound that escaped his mandibles was a dry, clicking sound. His voice, his human voice, was gone.
Gregor, are you all right? It's late.
He heard his sister's voice, softer, more hesitant.
Gregor, is something wrong?
He longed to answer them, to tell them he was okay, but how could he? How could he explain the unexplainable? Their concern fueled his desperation. He had to show himself, to prove he was still their Gregor. With a mighty effort, he pushed himself towards the door, each movement a symphony of clicks and scrapes. His father's shocked face filled his vision,
gasping, "What in heaven's name?"
The look of revulsion, of sheer terror in his father's eyes, struck Gregor like a physical blow.
You monster!
His father, once a source of comfort and security, now recoiled from him as if he were a monster.
Screaming, "No, no, what has happened to my boy?"
A high, piercing wail that cut through Gregor like a shard of glass.
Sobbing, "This can't be real."
The weight of their horror crushed him, pushing him further into the abyss of his new reality. He heard his father moving about, his voice a low growl of fury and fear.
This abomination will not stand.
His father was a man of action, and Gregor knew with chilling certainty that he would not tolerate this aberration. Section 6. Isolation and Despair. Sound of soft weeping coming from behind the closed door. Days turned into nights. He was alone, his only companions the shadows that danced in the corners of his room. He could hear his family moving about, their voices hushed, their footsteps heavy with dread. He was a prisoner in his own home, a monster in the eyes of those he loved most. Food was left at the edge of his room, pushed across the floor with a long stick. Each meal was a reminder of his isolation, of the chasm that now separated him from his family. He spent his days exploring his new form, marveling at its strangeness, its alien grace. But the wonder was always tinged with a deep, abiding sadness. He was trapped, a prisoner in his own exoskeleton. Section 7. A New Reality. Sound of the rain outside intensifying, drumming a steady rhythm against the window pane. He observed the world through multifaceted eyes, seeing details he had never noticed before. The dust motes dancing in the sunbeams, the intricate patterns of the wallpaper, all held a strange beauty, a newfound significance. Sound of Gregor's breathing, slow and rhythmic as if he were asleep. He discovered a strange comfort in the darkness, in the silence of his room. His thoughts, once a chaotic jumble, began to settle, replaced by a strange clarity. He was different, yes, but he was still Gregor. Sound of Gregor's legs tapping lightly against the floor, a newfound rhythm to his movements. He began to explore his new abilities, scaling the walls with ease, finding pleasure in the simple act of movement. The world, once so limiting, now seemed full of possibilities. Section 8. Acceptance and Resignation. Sound of a melancholic violin playing softly in the background. He knew he could never go back. The transformation was complete. He was an insect now, forever changed. He accepted his fate with a strange sense of peace. His human life, with all its anxieties and disappointments, seemed like a distant dream. Sound of Gregor gently rubbing his head against the floor, a gesture of comfort. He missed his family, their laughter, their touch. But he knew they could never accept him in this form. He was a monster to them, a source of shame and fear. He resigned himself to his solitude, finding solace in the silence, in the simple act of being. Sound of the music fading away, leaving only the sound of Gregor's breathing. The metamorphosis was complete, but it was not the end. It was a beginning, a new chapter in a life that was far stranger and more wonderful than he could have ever imagined. Section 9. The Metamorphosis Within. Sound of the first rays of dawn breaking through the window, casting long shadows across the room. Gregor watched as the first rays of dawn pierced the darkness of his room. Sound of Gregor's breathing, slow and steady, filled with a newfound sense of tranquility. He felt a strange sense of peace, of acceptance. He was different, yes, but he was still alive. He was still Gregor. Sound of a gentle breeze rustling the leaves outside, a whisper of hope and renewal. The metamorphosis, he realized, was not just physical. It was a transformation of the soul. Sound of a soft, reflective melody playing in the background. He had shed the skin of his former life, leaving behind the anxieties and expectations that had weighed him down. Sound of birds chirping, symbolizing freedom. He was free, free to embrace the unknown, to explore the world with fresh eyes. Sound of a distant waterfall, representing renewal. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of possibilities. Sound of a heartbeat, signifying hope. And Gregor, for the first time in a long time, felt a glimmer of hope.